Well, hello there. I was recently introduced to filmmaker Christopher Wesley Moore by my friend Roger Connors. Chris asked me to take a look at his new slasher film, Until You're Alone, which is currently doing the festival circuit, and doing very well, and I obliged. And oh boy, I am glad that I did. I cannot wait to dig into this gloriously queer Giallo film with all of you. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you so much, Roger, for thinking of me with this one. Now on with the show. Greetings, friends, and welcome back to the 3-Minute Horror Show. My name is Ben, your host, and I love horror movies. In fact, I watch the bad movies so that you don't have to. You're welcome. As I mentioned up top, today I'll be reviewing the movie Until You're Alone from 2026. After his husband is murdered by a masked killer, a straight-laced architect is forced to team up with a sex worker who witnessed the crime as they try to figure out the identity of their attacker. Wow. This movie was written and directed by Christopher Wesley Moore. He's from Mississippi, he's got a cool southern drawl, and he also wrote and directed Children of Sin, When the Trash Man Knocks, and not to mention a bunch of other things that are on my to-watch list. Chris sent me a link to a screener, and the clips that you see in this review are pulled from that. Until You're Alone is currently making the festival rounds and is not available to stream anywhere, but when it is, you definitely should stream it.
Duh.
Owen, played by the very talented Roger Connors, is a man who is stuck in a stagnant marriage. His husband Drew is a workaholic architect trying to advance his career, and Owen can't quite seem to hold down a job. Add on the fact that they haven't been romantic in quite some time, and Owen is feeling less than confident in himself. Drew wants to land an important new client who needs some churches built and is planning to have them over for dinner. Owen loses track of the day by visiting an adult campsite. He is intrigued by a sex worker named Connor, played by the writer-director Chris Moore, who also seems to take an interest in him. Tempted by the attention that he's being given, Owen drops his inhibitions, but is suddenly warned off by a real freak in a mask who says that Connor belongs to him. Now you're going to hear me use the term Giallo a lot towards the end of this review, and you might be wondering to yourself, what is a Giallo film? According to Wikipedia, Giallo is a subgenre that frequently contains slasher, thriller, psychological horror, psychological thriller, sexploitation, and less frequently, supernatural elements. They usually involve a killer with a secret identity, who is shown several times throughout the movie, but is completely hidden in some sort of stylistic manner. For example, black leather gloves, a very long trench coat, and a very large hat that completely obscures their features.
Yikes!
The term Giallo itself comes from a series of Italian mystery thriller novels that were published starting in the 1920s, and they were known for their yellow, or Giallo, covers. These novels were extremely popular, and they were mainly Italian translations of American and British writers. Copycats began using the yellow book cover motif as well, and eventually Giallo became more of a blanket term for that type of novel, kind of like Kleenex is with facial tissue. Now, the influence of this decidedly niche subgenre of horror continues to be felt in the horror film industry right up into today, the mid-2020s. You could say that the entire slasher subgenre was built using these bricks. In all of the excitement, Owen has forgotten to acquire the wine needed for the dinner. On top of that, the dinner goes absolutely horribly. Drew is pretending to be someone he isn't in hopes of landing this client, and Owen is not interested in playing along. There's a massive conflict between the partners, and Drew leaves. Owen decides to go ahead and set up an appointment to meet with Connor, thinking it's a date or a rendezvous. But when Connor arrives shortly thereafter, Owen realizes that this is business. He's made a mistake. But while Connor is showering, a mysterious figure in a rain slicker, wielding a hammer, murders Owen in brutal fashion. I adore Giallo films. Their use of bright and almost psychedelic colors to contrast their stark look of their hidden villains, the strange camera angles and extreme close-up shots that the filmmakers employ, as well as showing us the point of view of the killer, often with some strange, labored or heavy-breathing sound effect added.
Gross!
And the trippy music soundtracks, punctuated with discordant sounds when something shocking happens. I love it all. Here are some examples of fantastic gialli that you should check out if the genre interests you. Deep Red by Dario Argento from 1975. An Englishman in Italy witnesses his neighbor being murdered by a mysterious killer. And then he does everything he possibly can to piss the killer off. The visuals are gorgeous. The shots are just fantastic. The colors are on point, and the Goblin soundtrack is amazing. And the story is bonkers madonkers too. You can't go wrong with this one. Blood and Black Lace by Mario Bava from 1964. A masked killer is eliminating all of the models in an Italian fashion house one at a time. Now, this one is probably the most influential of all of the gialli. This movie established all of the elements that were used in the films that succeeded it, and many of the tropes that you still see in slasher films to this date. Torso by Sergio Martino from 1973. A masked killer strangles and dismembers female college students, until one enterprising young woman figures out their identity and becomes their next target. The last act of this movie will knock your socks off. And Suspiria by Dario Argento from 1977. A young woman is invited to join a prestigious dance academy in Germany that just happens to be run by a witch and her cult. And of course, the nasty witch kills people. The real meat of this movie, though, is in the visuals and the music. It's a stunner from top to bottom, with the psychedelic color and Goblin soundtrack being completely on point. Suspiria, this Suspiria, not the remake, is in my top 5 movies of all time. Just after this, Drew walks back in the door. He's landed the client and he wants to celebrate. He stumbles upon the body of his dead husband just as Connor is exiting the shower. They see each other, each thinking that the other is the killer, and Connor flees. Now the cops think that Drew is the killer, and they basically tell him that if he can't come up with the real killer within 48 hours, he'll be arrested. Do our jobs for us. Typical cop stuff. Anyhow, when Drew arranges to meet with Connor, the killer attacks both of them at the same time, and these two are forced into an unlikely partnership to uncover the mystery of who killed Owen. Now, I read this movie as Giallo through and through. I suspect that when I sit down with Chris to talk about his career, and this movie in particular, he's going to tell me that this is a love letter to early Argento, because I was picking that message up loud and clear. The soundtrack definitely feels like it was inspired by Goblin. And then you've got the rain-jacketed killer, completely hidden from view until they attack with their hammer. We've got the killer's POV shots, we've got the color and lighting used. This screams Giallo, and I love it. Chris, if I haven't already invited you, you're invited to come on my show, by the way.
Yes.
Beyond that, the effects were well done, and there are some really gnarly kills. Now, it feels silly to have to congratulate a filmmaker for not using AI in one of their projects, but I guess that's where we are in the world right now. I applaud you for not using AI. Hooray! The performances were fantastic. Stand out across the board. I wish we could have seen a little bit more Roger, but someone had to be the catalyst for our two unlikely heroes to come together. I really enjoyed this movie. In fact, I had to take a break halfway through to message Chris and tell him just how much I was enjoying it. I rate Until You're Alone a 9 out of 10. As always, a link to my Letterboxd appears in the video's description. Please leave me a like, comment, and subscribe, as it really does boost my engagement, helps my channel grow. Smell you later, nerds.
If you want my help with this, if you want me to play Murder, She Wrote with you, I'm gonna need to get paid.